So this is going to be a quick tutorial on Photopea. Just go to photopea.com, and this works just like Photoshop. And you can kind of see from the layout a little bit, it kind of looks a lot like it. They really did a good job of trying to make it feel and function as much like Photoshop as possible. So if you're having issues at home and just Creative Cloud isn't loading, you can totally just use Photopea. What's really nice about this, and I'll go and walk through each parts of this, but right when you walk in, this is what you'll see when you open it up. You can create a new project. You can have all these different formats here, but you can do free templates, open from computer. So if you've got one that's open already, I'm just going to click on new project. And what's cool here, I'm going to rename it and call it last name. It's always last name underscore and then selfie color wheel. My name. All right. We're going to keep these digital. So on the computer, we're not going to print these out. So 72 DPI dots per inch is what you'd want. That's digital. What's interesting too about this one is it starts with social, meaning what are some social template sizes that you can work with? So Facebook cover, Instagram post, Instagram story, Twitter profile, YouTube cover. So they have these preset dimensions for all those social media posts. I'm going to start with Instagram, 1080 by 1080 pixels. Okay, so it's a square format. The reason I'm doing that is I figured once you guys create this, you're gonna be pretty proud of your work. Maybe you'll post individual photos, but you could post this whole like color wheel collage that you can create as well too. So once you've got that, you can even change the color of the background if you want it transparent, if you want to put in a background. I just left it as white. You can always edit that later. And I'm gonna hit create. And then you've just got your artboard like you would see in Photoshop in this little square format. I've got my layers panel over here, and you can see you've got your, your trash, your new layer, folder. They call it a raster mask as opposed to a layer mask. And then you have adjustment layers, which is all the same things. So very even similar symbols you'll see in there. So very similar to Photoshop, works great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import my photo. So I'm going to go to File, and then you have an option here, Open in Place. And I'm just going to go the same one I did from the example. Actually, I'm just going to grab a random one. I can't see what these are, but you can see these are raw photos. And that's what's nice about Photopea is it allows you to use raw photos. So if you're shooting in your DSLR in RAW, it'll convert it to a photo that you can work with. So again, it does just like in Photoshop. Photoshop opens camera raw. There's raw Photopea. So it does it the same exact way that Photoshop works. So you can do some minor editing here. I'm not going to. I'm just going to click open to start with. All right. So I've got another tab here with this new photo, and then I've got my selfie one that I want to work with. Okay. So what I can do, so a couple things you can do. You can edit from here in this photo and bring it in. I just prefer to click and drag just like we would in Photoshop. I'm going to drag it over to that tab, and it switches over, and then bring it to the middle and drop it there. Now you can see that my photo is obviously way too big for the canvas. So we have to transform that. I haven't dug too much into Photopea, so I don't know what this transform controls is. I'm not sure what that is, but if you go to image and transform, nope, that's not what I want. Edit, that's what it was. Edit, free transform. There it is. And hold down Control and hit the minus button, allows you to zoom out. You can see that's how big my picture is. Hold down the Shift button, allows you to scale it proportionally. So I'm going to scale it down really small because I got to get it on my artboard there. And then I can drag it in. And then Control and the plus sign on your keyboard. We'll zoom in. And again, hold the Shift button. I can resize it down to where I want and put it right there. So you can see that's going to be, I'm not going to be able to fit all 6 photos. So I'll probably have to scale that down even more to work with. And that should work. And once you get it to the right size, that little red line pops up to let you know it's centered. Once you're good, you hit this little check mark over here, confirm it, and now it's set. Okay, so that's my background layer. We'll just leave it as named background for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the new adjustment layer, and I'm going to go to color balance. Okay, and this is my red, green, and blue colors. One thing too, you'll notice how this little window pops up over my artboard. It's going to be hard to see some of the things under it. This little double arrow thing, if I click on that, it expands the window, but it pushes my artboard out so it doesn't cover the work I'm doing. So I can see my work while I work with that. This one, I can shrink that one down. Now it gives me some more to work with. So these little arrows allow you to expand and contract the window that you're working with. So that's really nice. So typically, if you remember from the presentation, yellow is at the top. That's kind of what I would usually start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of bring my colors down and adjust those colors to see and get that subtle yellow. See, now I'm bringing my blue down, and you can start to see my colors turning a little bit more, having a warmer yellow color to it. All right, you can see I can get really drastic, which I don't want to do. And it's a little green, more green than I want it to be. So I pull up the red a little bit. So again, there's no set numbers. I'm not going to give you numbers to type in here and say that's going to be perfect. Each photo is different, but you're going to adjust and move these around until you get a subtle yellow color. I hit Control plus, and then I can scroll up and see the color. So if I want to zoom in a little bit more and see what that looks like, if that's a good yellow color, bring that green up a little bit more, bring that blue down. I think that's pretty good. Zoom out a little bit. So that's a pretty solid one, and I'm good with that. I'm going to scroll up here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to minimize this window. I'm going to open up my layers. Okay. And you don't notice it now, but once you start adding in more photos, when you start doing these color balances, if there's something below it, it's going to affect all that, right? So if I had, let's just say this one, I'm going to duplicate this layer just for the sake of an example here. So you'll be putting in your new photo, right? And it's going to be at the top. This color balance, we want it down here. Okay. So right there, I've got this color balance. Now you can see the original and then the yellow from the adjustment. So I can definitely see a change in it now, right? What I want to do, and you can also do that with the little eyeball. So I can turn that off and see how subtle that yellow is. So let's say for this one, I want to change the color balance and I want to go for the violet. So I'm going to expand this so I can see my work. See how that covered it? When I put in that window covers it and I can't see the work I'm doing. So I have to hit these arrows to open that up. So I'm going to bring my red up and I'm going to bring up my blue, bring down my green a little bit. That might be a little too much. So I'm going to bring those down a little bit more. But if you notice, look what happened to my yellow, right? So if I take the eyeball on this color balance, you can see that my color adjustment I'm making, I'm looking at this one to make sure I've got the purple violet that I want. But because it's above this layer of this photo, it's affecting that one as well. So what you have to do is you have to create a clipping mask. So the way that works in Photopea is really simple. So I've got this color balance and I want it to clip and only work with this layer below it, right? I only want it to work on this layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm selected on that color balance layer, right click on it, and there it is, clipping mask. And when I click on that, you'll see this little arrow says I'm going to apply this color filter only to this layer right here. And you'll see now, if you look at my board, I've got that original yellow that I like. And now my color adjustment is only on this one right here. See that? So that's really nice. That's a quick way to do that because you'll notice as you go through that all your colors are freaking out. That's just kind of what's happening to it. One last thing I would do to help you out is with this layer, after you do the clipping mask, I'm going to select that color balance layer, hold down shift and select the layer I just worked with. And I'm going to make a folder. And I'm going to double click on that and call it violet. I'm going to name it that color. This one, I'm also going to right click, apply a clipping mask, hold down shift. So I'm selected these two layers and make a new folder. This just helps keep you organized, but then you can easily hide and move things around. And then you don't have all these other layers of clipping masks and things getting caught in between. It just helps keep things nice and clean. So you're going to repeat that. You'll open your photo, drag it in, and then do any of the color balance editing and then put them in the order. Make sure they're in the correct order. So it'd be red, yellow, green, blue, violet, red, orange. That's kind of the circle with it. Okay. So and it has to be in that order. Otherwise your secondary colors don't work. Okay. And then once you're done, you're going to go to File and you're going to what's really great about Photopea as well. Let's say you can save it as a PSD file. So you can save it as a PSD and then open it in Photoshop and continue working on it. So if maybe right now temporarily you have to use this, you can save all of your work that you're doing as a Photoshop file so that when you get access to it, you can work with it again. It's great. You can also export it as a PNG, JPEG, whatever you need to do. So you can also publish it online, right? But I wouldn't worry about that yet. I would just export it, and you're going to export it as a PNG, right? I would also save it as a PSD, so you can always go back to it and edit. You always want to save it that way. But then I would export it as a PNG. You've already got it saved as the name that you want, right? I'm going to click save. I'm going to put my quality up to 100 because I always want the best. And then what it does is it downloads it for you right there. So it downloads it on there. You have to go into your downloads folder and find it, and then you can attach that to the Padlet for submission. So that is a quick tutorial on how to use Photopea instead of Photoshop.